Microphone check 2 1 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bobby. Episode 25. We in the building. You know what that means? 25% to the way of 100 episodes. 25 deep, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Cooking up on this beautiful Labor Day. It is 4:14 p.m. in the afternoon. And man, it feels good. Spent yesterday at the beach. Got to reconnect with a couple buddies of mine that I hadn't seen since December. Of course, social distancing, 6 feet apart. You know what I'm saying? Doing our thing at the beach, catching some waves, catching some vibes. And had a blast. It was absolutely beautiful. We're going through an absolute scorching heat last couple of days here in Los Angeles. And man, I hope people are putting on that sunblock, because your boy was loaded up yesterday with that 30. And still somehow, Mr. Sunray loves to find a way to burn me. My back's a little torched up. It's all good. In a couple days, we're going to be looking super snackalicious, because we'll be real nice and tan. So it was well worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, as of now, the pod didn't come out, but by the time you hear this through your headphones, the podcast would have came out. Extremely excited with episode 24 with Blake Pinsker. What a beast. What a bearded beast, I must say. I got connected to Blake back in 2018 through Jeremiah Davis, actually, through that one blonde kid, or as I like to say, my favorite blonde kid. And connected with this guy back in 2018. He had helped build the movement, MVMT. Most of you guys and gals probably know them for the watches. They also have accessories and sunglasses and probably some newer stuff. I just, it's hard to keep track of what everyone's doing nowadays. Anyway, at the time when I met him, he was, I believe, the VP of marketing of brand for Movement, and that was in 2018. And Blake put me in touch with, actually, I believe, Brandon Cohen of Liquid IV, Steve Borelli of Cuts. He was kind of a domino effect of a lot of great entrepreneurs that I ended up meeting through the podcast. But great timing to have Blake on the podcast because he had just left Movement recently, or he did, I believe, some point during COVID. But it was extremely great timing to connect with him, because the last piece I had done with him was we did a What They Don't See episode, which was a YouTube series that I did of going into creative spaces and seeing where people kind of work. And being able to have him on the podcast, this is, the first time him being on It's the Bearded Man podcast, it was really great timing, because we were able to dive into, leaving Movement and going into his next project, Us Versus Them Agency, which he actually is doing with that one blonde kid, Jeremiah Davis. But just an incredible podcast, for somebody that helped build Movement from the ground up, where they started in an apartment of just, probably 4 or 5 of them to a space. And their HQ now, I believe, can seat up to 80 employees. I don't know what their numbers are at right now, but just some incredible growth. And, it's probably was pretty difficult, and not in the sense of it probably, because I know it was, as we talked about it on the podcast this week. It wasn't easy for him, probably thinking it through about leaving, but as he dives into it, he really opens up on kind of why he decided to leave Movement, and how he's continuously chasing this passion of wanting to help build. And I think that happens with some companies when they get acquired or sold. There's just things happen, and might change the culture a little bit or whatever. And so, yeah, it was just what an incredible episode. So if you get a chance today, check out the podcast with Blake Pinsker. I think you guys and gals will enjoy it. It's episode 24. And hope you enjoy it. We got a lot more Bearded Man content on the way. A lot more guests in the works. And, sit tight. I hope you guys and gals are enjoying both these solo and guest pods as much as I am creating them. Today we hit 50 days with no booze. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 50 days with no booze. Very tempting yesterday being at the beach and seeing all these people around me, boozing up, taking shots at Tito's, couple 2-3 White Claws. And I did good. I didn't touch anything. Still just rolling without it, staying super productive, getting a lot of shit done, and just going to kind of see how much longer this goes. Interesting, though, right before I hopped on this podcast, I connected with my parents to see how they were doing on the East Coast, and was just informed that one of my uncles that has been struggling with alcohol is actually heading back into rehab, or is back in rehab. And just speechless. I hope, I hope my family, and I don't want to say specifics because this is obviously very personal and not, doesn't need to be public, but I hope my family that is around this human are holding up strong. And, like I said from the jump, I'm not doing this 50 days of no booze because I don't think it's good. I just wanted to reset myself. I wanted to reground myself. And, as I'm getting into this podcast content again, heavily invested in wanting to get back into, rolling this stuff out and just seeing how much time it takes behind the scenes to produce it, even just audio. I just have been really efficient and productive having 7 days of the week to operate versus, 5.5 when you're hungover as shit. I'm all for having a good time. I'm all for big vibes, big energy, a couple Jameson and gingers and a couple shots and some brews, and I'm all for a good time. But I think it's really important to just sometimes either step away if we need to, or just be aware of, is this something I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, or is it escapism? Do I look forward to boozing at the weekend because I'm just sick of what I'm doing during the week? Or is it because I'm like, I want to go have a good time? And, are we somebody that lets the liquor get the best of us, or do we know how to balance it? Hey, I'm not the expert. I can only speak from my experiences. A lot of my experiences are usually on full throttle, and, fortunately I haven't done anything too stupid, but I just noticed the pros and cons for me personally. So all that to say, I hope you guys and gals, if you're enjoying booze as great as it can be, please just be aware. And if there's ever some time where it's getting the best of you, reach out to someone that you can talk to. Shit, even reach out to me in a DM. I'll happily provide some of my 2 cents, my bearded wisdom, in the hopes that it will help you. But yeah, just be aware. Just be aware, have fun, live your life. Fucking, we got one shot at this game. I'm trying to have a grand old life. I want them writing movie scripts by the time I leave this earth. So that's the goal. I just want to create great memories, create great stories, and hopefully inspire others to do some dope shit in their life. So please be aware. Have a good old time. Today's topic. This month marks 3 years of living in Los Angeles. Whoa. 3 years. What a roller coaster of a ride this has been. Going from literally Boston, Massachusetts. I mean, I grew up in Chicopee, Massachusetts, but going from Boston, Massachusetts, if you look at that, where that is on the map, and then you look at where Los Angeles is, it's a far ways away. Very, very far distance. Not somewhere you could really walk. I mean, you can walk. Shout out to Mike Posner. I know he did that. Not somewhere you can walk, but it takes a long time. And yeah, I just think it's crazy. 3 years already living in here, and I still love it. And I just wanted to kind of break down some of that today, because I think there's people out there that are really tempted to moving somewhere, maybe Los Angeles, maybe New York City. Now, let me just say this when we go into this podcast. Understand this is when there's going to be a lot of things that I talk about, and clearly be aware that pandemic situation right now with COVID, some of these you can't necessarily go out and meet people the way I'll describe it at some point through this podcast. But please take this episode with a grain of salt, given everything that's happening in the world. This is the intent of when things go back to normal, if they do, hopefully sooner than later. This is about pushing people to go live in that place you've always wanted to live. Because there's a lot of people that will never actually take that leap for, I'm sure, a list of external reasons. But man, I feel very fortunate that I had that mindset of like, I'm going to do this. And as we'll talk about today, didn't happen the first or second time, happened the third, and still here today. So yeah, I just think there's just so much beauty in this world, and we'll dive into kind of all this today. So many of you probably already know this, so I apologize if you're like, yo, Beard Man, I already know this. Why tell me again? That's the point of these solo pods, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposed to dive into more of my story, and sometimes things get repeated because I've only been around for 26 young years, dude. Still cranking up the heat. Oven's still on preheat, but sometimes a lot of these stories kind of, they overlap. It's the same stories, but hopefully I can shed some light for some people. I'd always wanted to live in LA, though. Ever since I can remember 5th grade. Don't remember what if it was a specific movie, Maybe it was because I was shopping at Hollister and I would see like Huntington Beach and Redondo Beach on like those like big screens showing like the waves. I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to live in LA. Just something about it. Wasn't interested in entertainment. Just loved the idea of being around the glitz and glamour. And I was like, man, I got to get there. I need to live in Los Angeles. And I just don't know when. But it just has been a seed inside my head for a long, long time. And so there were 2 times in my life where I thought I was going to make the move. It was right after I graduated high school. I didn't get into my number one school, which was Bentley University, which funny enough, I didn't get in there as a freshman. Still ended up graduating from there, which I've talked about many of times on other podcasts. But so I didn't get into Bentley, and I was like, fuck this. I'm moving to LA, Mom and Dad, I'm going to Santa Monica Community College. I'm going to figure it out. That didn't happen. But I thought that was going to be the first instance that I actually could potentially move to LA. And it wasn't until actually then there was a second time. There's a second time when I was graduating college, and in 2016 I didn't know what I was going to do after college. So I was like, this might be a good time to just go try a new city. Like, I have nothing holding me back, no strings attached, no relationships. You know, I'm done with college. I literally have from this moment moving forward, my future is going to be whatever I create it to be. Why not move to LA and try something new and just figure it out? Well, thankfully I had a bright enough mind where I thought about the long play of, I want to move to LA, but I'm now in the process of thinking about starting this podcast, which was Purpose in the Youth at the time. And I realized if I move to LA, a city that I maybe know 1 or 2 people in, how am I going to build a podcast that's interviewing people when I don't know anybody who lives in that city? So thankfully I thought about the bigger picture, and I was like, this is not the right time to move to LA. Let's pump the brakes, Bobby. So I ended up signing that lease in Boston, after I graduated. And at that time when I signed the lease, I hadn't even told my roommates, I told my parents, told myself, 1 year from now, when this lease ends, I will be going to Los Angeles. If in a year from now I'm still doing this podcast, great. I'll have a year under my belt. Hopefully we'll have figured out some of the ropes of podcasting. I'll have something to use as like, hey, this is the podcast I've been running in Boston. Now I'm in LA. Great. If for some reason the podcast doesn't work out, at least I gave it a full year in Boston. I'll move to LA and I'll start something new. I'll figure it out. So I signed that lease in Boston, and there was a time on my whiteboard I was starting to count down the days. 300 days till moving to LA, like 250. And at one point I was like, yo, I gotta erase this. This is supposed to be my last year in Boston, technically, after being in Greater Boston for 4 years for college. Why am I counting down? I just need to be present. I gotta enjoy the ride. I know I'm about to move to LA at some point when this lease ends, but counting it down is just aggressive. I don't want to know the amount of days until I'm moving to LA. So I erased it, but it really was just good intention because it was just something that I dreamed of since I was a kid. So I was like, man, this really is going to be a big leap when I move to LA. So come August, actually, it's interesting now. I'm thinking back on it. When I do these podcasts, I sit down and write out some notes just to give it some structure so I'm not just like completely going off the cuff. But this was something I didn't even think about. But I remember it was like late July, early August, and now, mind you, Dylan Reese, my roommate, great guy, fellow Chicopee masshole as in Massachusetts asshole, as some people call us. One of my best friends that I grew up with, literally my best friend. We had already talked about moving to LA together, and so the time was kind of getting close to start locking in like a place. And I remember Dylan called me. He's just like, yo, I just don't know about this move just yet. Like, could we wait like another 2 months so I can get, some things finished up? And I kind of gave him the ultimatum, and I'm happy. It was tough at the time, but I'm happy that I was so stuck on my vision, because I think there's times in people's lives where they would not continue to move forward with the thing they want to do because of other people's situations, which case by case, sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But I think there's definitely some times where people don't move forward with the thing they want to do because of somebody else, which is horrible. And then they never get around to it. And so he was kind of leaning on like, yo, could we wait like 2 months and then we could potentially move out there? And I pretty much just said, yo, come with me. We'll figure it out. if you don't, I'm still going, and we will figure it out when you get out there. It was nothing against him. It was just, I was not going to wait around for 2 months and then go. And then part of me was like, well, what happens if in 2 months it's still not the right time and he pushes another 2 months? I was like, I'm not doing that. So thankfully it all came around and it actually worked out to his favor. And so me, him, and then one of his buddies from college, Steve Mopsikoff, who's previously been on the pod. Both of these guys have previously been on the pod. Still live with these guys in LA. He was from Palmdale, which is north of LA, and he was living in Northern California, where he was working at Oakland Airport, and he was looking to move back to LA, and specifically was going to work out of Burbank Airport for Southwest Airlines. And so the three of us started plotting together, should we move to LA? And we started talking about it. And I had met Steve twice previously, so we released, we knew each other, but Dylan was definitely the one putting us all three together. And so I'll get into how we found that spot in a second. But before we get there, I want to talk about this little road trip that I had. Luckily, shout out to my man, Evan Healy, one of my great friends that I met my freshman year of college at LaSalle College. Hell of a guy. A-plus guy. I just talked to this guy a couple days ago for the first time in a couple months, and just a great guy, great bearded guy. So I needed somebody to do this road trip across the country with me. And that was something that I had always wanted to do, was part of like that 5th grade vision of moving to LA. Part of it was like, I want to do this road trip across the country to get there. Like, it's just something I need to do. And I knew it was going to be beneficial because I wanted to drive my car out here. I knew I was going to be driving Uber out here, and I knew I could pack my car with a bunch of shit. So I told myself, I'm going to pack my car, and whatever I can pack in it is coming with me. And if I can't, I'm not shipping anything. That's it. So Dylan was definitely not doing the drive with me because he doesn't have his license, and I'm not driving across the country. I'm not letting that be all the work for me. Steve was already living out on the West Coast. No chance he was doing it. So I started thinking, like, who would be down to do a road trip? And Evan Healy popped in my mind. He's an adventure guy, always been great energy, always been good vibes. So I call him up, couple weeks ahead of time, and I told him, I'm moving out to LA. He already knew this. I said, if you come with me, I'll pay for the expenses. Just pay for your flight back. We'll have a great time. He said, let's do it. So August 31st, 2017 comes. My car gets packed up. Say farewell to the parents. Also at the same time, my sister, who was living at home, was moving down to Charleston, South Carolina. So my parents helped her move down to South Carolina. They packed up the car. They drove her south. And at the same day, we all left, which was like crazy. I felt so bad for my parents. It was like empty nest syndrome where, the kids that you raise are now completely out of the house. And I felt terrible for them at the time. But I think part of the good thing was they were driving down with my sister. So that was like, all right, stay focused on her. Just let me go west and I'll figure this shit out. So this was right when I started getting into YouTube and like wanting to just create and document everything about my life, because I was still just trying to find my voice in the world. So it was like, screw it. We're going to be in the car a long time. We're going to be doing some dope shit. I'm going to make a vlog of the entire trip. So we left August 31st, 2017, and I ended up making a 4-part vlog called From Massachusetts to California Road Trip. Very original. Can we pause for a second and appreciate how creative that was? Good job, Bob. Good job, Bearded Man. You really thought outside the box on this one. Absolutely not. So I made a 4-part vlog and just documented and split up the trip into these like 10-minute vlogs. And we crushed it. We went to Niagara Falls, Lost Canyon, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Devil's Tower, Yellowstone, Grand Teton, Arches, Zion, Marble Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, and Las Vegas. We did all that in about 7 to 8 days. So we were cruising. Mind you, if you mapped out all these places on a map, this is not just a straight across the country. We also stopped in Chicago too. But we were just going up and north and south, and hopefully, I don't think we ever backtracked, but some destinations we kind of had to go out of our way to go to. But it was also like, this is probably the only time we're ever going to be able to do this. So let's just drive the extra 5 hours and, go check out this place. So we do that 7-8 day road trip. Mind you, this is already a big leap. I'm moving across the country. I was not trying to spend money on hotels. So of that 7 to 8 day road trip, I wish I knew the exact days. If it was 8 days, just to make numbers easy, we slept in my car 6 nights of the 8, which is mind-boggling. We were in my white Ford Fusion. We would cock the seats back, both seats, cock them back, put up a towel in front of my windshield. Luckily, I had tinted windows, which gave us privacy, but we would sleep in my car, which was not ideal, but we made it work. There was one time on the road trip out, Evan had a friend in Buffalo, New York, so she let us crash there. So that was a great, night to like sleep on an actual couch or blow up mattress, which also I was salty about Buffalo because this was essentially the first night of the road trip. We get to Buffalo, and then the first destination of this trip across the country is to go to Niagara Falls. And so the morning after we grab breakfast, we split ways with his friend. We're driving to Niagara Falls, and your boy got a speeding ticket. And let me just tell you, I was not happy about that. I tried playing it cool. Oh, it was like 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Like, come on, brother. And of course, this is all new territory to me. I tried to explain that to the officer. I'm like, yeah, I'm moving across the country. I'm sorry. I just on this road trip. I just didn't recognize the speed. He did not care. And so he wrote me a ticket and tried fighting it. Didn't work. But it was not a great moment because it was the beginning of this road trip. And I was like, great, I'm already off. I'm not even 300 miles from home and I already have a speeding ticket. This is just going to be great. Luckily, I watched the speed the rest of the trip. Evan was smart enough to get the GoPro rolling when the officer approached the car. And I just wasn't a happy camper. But hey, you learn your lessons. So other than the Buffalo, we slept in a hotel in Colorado because Evan's mom picked up, I think she felt bad that we were sleeping in my car. So she got us a hotel one night. And other than that, the best thing, and I don't know where Evan learned this, but advice that I would give to anybody that's road tripping, going across country, especially in the U.S., the best place to sleep in your car are Walmart parking lots. This might be the greatest advice of the podcast episode for sure. The reason is most Walmarts are 24 hours, which means that if you park in the parking lot, and I'm not saying like park in the front of the damn entrance, that's just too much going on. Park in the very back of the parking lot. Or usually like where those islands are, those cement islands, you can kind of like, they usually have trees so you can like corner yourself and try to look invisible. But the beauty of sleeping in a Walmart parking lot in a car is that most of them are 24/7, which means that if you wake up at any moment in time and you're hungry or you need something, you can walk right into Walmart. If you need to use a bathroom, Walmart has that. Most Walmarts have 24/7 security, so they have vehicles driving around so you feel safe. And they don't really bother you. It's like a hidden thing where like if you know, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. But Walmarts were the best place to sleep. And we always found one no matter where we were in the country because it's freaking Walmart. They're everywhere. So yeah, that was great. But yeah, we literally slept in my car for I think 6 nights. And eventually we made it to LA. Incredible road trip. To me it was like one of those things where I was like, glad I checked it off the bucket list. Probably not something I want to do again, or at least not in my car. And it was great. I remember when we got to Vegas the night before making it to LA, and I was just like getting anxious. I'm like so close, but yet still not there. And I was just so pumped to finally get into LA. And I remember we started seeing the Los Angeles signs on the highway, and we just bumped California Love by Tupac. And I was so fired up. I still can vividly remember the video of my man Evan capturing me on Snapchat when Snapchat was big. R.I.P. So we made it to LA. Now, before moving out here, we had Dylan and Steve. It was going to be the trio, the Three Musketeers moving out here. And so you could have dropped a pin anywhere in LA, and I was down to live there because this was my first time moving to LA. I didn't care where we lived. I just wanted to be in LA. We got very fortunate because Steve was actually able to be in person and go check out some of these properties that we were looking at. We knew we needed a house. Steve was running 5-Star Vintage, his clothing company. It's flip vintage clothing. So he needed a garage and we needed a 3-bedroom house. And so we ended up out in the valley, in Sun Valley. And before we found this place though, Fortunately, Steve was working for Southwest Airlines. He was up in Oakland, so he could just fly down for free and go look at these places where me and Dylan couldn't do that. We were on the other side of the country. It would have cost us money to fly out here. So fortunately for Steve, he was able to come down here, check out some of the spots in person, and then, we filled out the paperwork and we locked into Content Crib 1.0 in Sun Valley. Look at where Sun Valley is, Sun Valley, California on a map, and look how far out this place is. Granted, it was still in Los Angeles, but it was way out in the burbs, and, we could not have afforded a house in West Hollywood or in Santa Monica or Venice. We didn't have the money for that. But it goes to show you, or not goes to show you, but you got to sacrifice, right? Like, yeah, we can't be in the hottest spots, but we can still make it work. And so we kind of lived way out in the valley, and we found a way to make it work. It was, at the time, I think it was like $2,600 in rent. It was like 867-ish bucks per person. And we had to make it work with what we had. And so I think I got out here with maybe $4,000 to $5,000. I get a lot of people that always ask me, like, how much money would you move to LA with? And I would say nothing less than $4,000 to $5,000, because it gives you a little bit of cushion to, get your feet wet, and, you're going to have to buy some stuff. So much expense is coming with moving. You just don't think about it in real time, but then you got to buy this, you got to buy that. We got very lucky because Steve was moving from Northern to Southern California, so he brought a lot of stuff from his old place down, where me and Dylan were coming across the country, and we just flew with the things that we needed the most. So that was extremely helpful. The only thing I did buy online immediately was my mattress, which I got on Amazon, which I'm telling you right now, I still have the same mattress, and I sleep like a freaking king on this thing. It's like $300 or $400. Showed up in a cardboard box. I cut it open. Thing just became a bed out of nowhere. Like, it just, it's like compressed and then uncompresses. And all that, we went to IKEA. We found everything we needed. I registered my car in California, got my license in California, took the freaking driving exam. Luckily, I didn't have to do the actual driving. I just had to do the written test. And I was literally up and driving Uber within 7 to 10 days, which was huge. That was a game changer. I don't think there's many people that move to LA unless you move out here because you had a job lined up and that's why you're moving here. But I think a lot of people that just take the leap and come to LA and are like, all right, I'm going to figure it out. I don't think a lot of people have a job lined up within 7 to 10 days. And because of Uber, as I've talked many times on this podcast, excuse me, I was able to start working within 7 to 10 days. And still remember that first Uber ride. I picked somebody up in North Hollywood, dropped them off somewhere in the hills, and I just could not believe. I was like, yo, here's the start of something new. And man, driving to LA was a hell of a day. Hell of 3 years, I should say. I think over 110,000 miles. It was freaking absurd. I'm going to sip some water, and then we're going to keep rocking and rolling. Rocking and rolling. And rocking and rolling. That's what I call the high quality water break. I need it. I don't know if you guys know this. Fun fact, you need water to live. So if you need water to live, you got to keep drinking it. All right. Let's keep it rolling. So there's been clearly tons of lessons I've learned in the last couple of years of living here, but I just thought of a couple that really stuck out the most from the past 3 years. Number one, your home will always be your home. People get nervous to take that leap, to move to a different city that they dream of living in, that they have visited previously or have never visited before. And we are so comfortable in our homes because it's all we know that we don't want to take that leap. But your home will always be your home. I knew moving out here, no matter what happens, Chicopee, Massachusetts is going nowhere. It's going nowhere. It's always going to be there for me. And the amount of it doesn't matter what city you move to or what town. It doesn't have to be Los Angeles. It doesn't have to be New York. It doesn't have to be Miami, Florida. It doesn't have to be any of these major cities. It can be anywhere. Even if you move 30 minutes from where you grew up, no, let's dial it back. Even if you move to the next town over, it's going to change your perspective. I've grown to appreciate my home in Massachusetts so much more since being out here. But just being out here and seeing a different way of life and a different culture and not having seasons and it just being beautiful all the time, it just changes my perspective. Like, wow, we grow up in certain areas in our life, but we kind of do have a choice after a certain age we could move somewhere that we'd rather be. And I love being in Southern California where the sun is out year round. Sign me up. No more shoveling, no more dealing with snow. I don't got to deal with any of that shit. So I think moving to a different city, whether it's the next city over or to a destination you've always wanted to live, it just changes your perspective. And I knew that no matter what happens when I moved to LA, no matter if I'm out here for 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10, it didn't matter how long I was out here, I knew that I would be able to live the rest of my life knowing I at least tried it. It's always been my perspective with things. At least trying it, and if it doesn't work out, I can live with it. When we're watching basketball here, Dylan always says that, like right now, the NBA playoffs, somebody will put up a 3-pointer, it'll be wide open, and he'll just go live with it. And I think what he's saying is like that person took that shot, and if it goes in, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. And then that's from the perspective of the opposing team. If it goes in, like there's nothing you can do, and if it doesn't go in, take it, live with it. And so I think that's what we have to do with taking that leap of going somewhere new. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean you failed. Doesn't mean you have to be like negative about it. It's like you took a shot. You tried it. And that to me is always the thing. It's like I can live with it knowing that I at least tried it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But number one, your home will always be your home. It's going nowhere. There's plenty to see out in this world. If there's something you want to go do, then go do it. Kind of going off of that, secondly, would be seek your interests. I had always wanted to move to LA since I was in 5th grade. Always wanted to live out here. And I knew that it was a matter of timing, but I would eventually do it. And it was scary. It was scary to make that leap and to go across the country. Literally, I couldn't go any farther across the country if I tried. And I at the time, it still felt so right. There was no regret. There has never been a regret. There have been moments where, not that I regret living out here, but I wish I could be at 2 places at once because time passes and you don't get to see certain people. I FaceTime my parents at minimum once a week, talk to them for 30 minutes. And the thing that kills me is not being there for moments, birthdays or family gatherings. It's Labor Day weekend right now. My parents are down in Connecticut visiting fam. I can't be there. I can't just fly in for a quick week. I mean, I could, but I'd spend more time probably flying than I would with actually being with them. And so that can be a tough thing to sacrifice, but I still think being here is the right place. I still feel I'm where I'm supposed to be, and things continuously get better and better. So I need to keep seeing how this goes. But just in general, if it scares you, you got to do it. If there's a city you want to move to, do it. And I think that just with anything, if you're interested, do it. Kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I'm not going to allow myself to not do something because other people don't want to do it. It can be very scary and nerve-wracking to take that leap of doing something on your own, whether it's moving to LA or moving to a different city or not. It could be anything. You want to pick up a new hobby or passion or whatever it might be. You got to shoot that shot. You got to at least try it. We cannot wait for other people to want to do the same things as us in order to do it. Talked about it previously on podcasts about surfing. I've always wanted to do it. Told myself I'll wait till the right time. Timing wasn't showed up. I did it myself. Took a solo lesson, and it was incredible. Now I own a surfboard. Freaking surfing SoCal, baby. But instead of what an opportunity might take to do, which I think sometimes scares us from actually doing it, like, oh, I got to pay this. I got to sacrifice this. Think about it from the sense and the perspective of what could it give me? What could it show me? Had I never started podcasting, I wouldn't be doing this right now. And my God, I would be really curious to know where the hell I am in this world if I didn't start podcasting, because a lot of dots connect back to the podcast. The people that I know in LA, podcast. The job that I have, from podcasting. Literally everything connects back to podcasting. But there was a moment in time where I was like, didn't know if I was going to do this or not. And I did it. And now it's become part of my life that I forget that this was just an idea. And so instead of thinking about what is it going to take to do something, what's it going to take from me, whether it's money, time, energy, think about what it could give. There's something that it could give us, and we don't know sometimes, but we can guess. Could be an adrenaline, could be an experience, could be mental clarity. It could be literally insert anything that's going through your mind. What can it give me? And that gives us more reason to seek that interest. That's number 2. Number 3, there's always a way. Okay? We as humans love to make up every excuse of why we can't. I could have made up every excuse. I can't move to LA. Why is that? But Bearded Man, I don't have the money. I don't know anybody who lives in LA. It's a big city. It's too far from home. Blah, 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 blah. I could have made up any excuse, but there's always a way to make it work. For every excuse I just made up, there's always a solution to the problem or what I'm seeing as the problem. So the only way to actually trust and believe and really understand what I mean by saying, or this lesson of there's always a way, is by putting us in these uncomfortable situations that force us to find a way, right? I've talked about it in previous podcasts where we don't necessarily always know the blueprint. We have to create it, right? We create it in real time. And that's like our lives. That's not, as somebody who's creative, that's just your story, my story. Everyone's story is so unique to them, but they didn't know that. And when it was happening, they just created the blueprint, as they went. And so I think that's true to any situation in our lives. There's always a way to make it work, but sitting there and not taking action is never going to allow us to find the way. The only way we find the way is by actually taking the action, which then forces us to then find the next action to resolve the issue. I sound like I'm on some philosophical shit right now, and I hope that it's making sense, because in real time it sounds like I'm painting the Picasso in words, but I really believe there's always a way. Number 4 would be building community takes time. That's a big, I think, reason people don't move to cities they want to live in, is because they're like, well, all my friends and family are in this place. What am I going to do? Mind you, that was a thought on moving here. I knew that I was sacrificing, and I have sacrificed a lot of friendships and relationships to make that move. And even then, to find that new circle of people takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes energy. And you have to accept that. And that's something that I've accepted, right? Talked about a lot in these recent podcasts I've been putting out about balance. And so for like the first 2.5 years of living out here, it was really just head down, work, build business relationships, keep networking, keep growing the podcast, keep meeting great people. And it worked. I figured out a rhythm, and it worked. And damn, it built me to where I am. No doubt about it. And I actually was talking to somebody that I had met through podcasting last night. Actually, I met him through touring, but we did a podcast by the name of Huey Mack. And straight up, like, this is somebody that I knew before moving to LA. Bless his soul. He allowed me to sleep. Him and our other homie, Noah Sedone, they'd allow us to sleep on their couch before moving out to LA. There was like 2 trips that I came out here. And I was with him last night, and we kind of just vibing, and he made a comment about like, yeah, like, it's interesting. We kind of lost touch, and it was no disrespect, and it was not weird. I was just like, yo, honestly, I agree. But one thing I said to him was like, I hope you realize it's never been personal. It's just 2 things. One, I was so head down for like the first 2.5 years that I wasn't going out. I wasn't really hitting people up. I just like was just so fucking head down, which I don't regret, but just like cringe when I think about it. And then secondly, it's like, that's something I've just grown to understand. Like, it is literally impossible to stay best friends or stay in touch with everyone. Everyone that you meet in life, you kind of have to pick and choose. And that actually sounds weird as I say that, because who you pick and choose to try to communicate with is who you stay in touch with, which means if you're not picking the other people, does that mean you not value their relationship? No. I just think that there's just not enough time in life to really have those full-scale, genuine relationships. Now, I believe there actually is, now that I'm thinking about it, and it's going to be full-time podcasting, because then you get to have conversations every single day of the week, which I would love. That's truly the dream job for the bearded man. Would be incredible. Just to talk and have great conversations. Love that. But that's the next phase that I've been working on, is building that community. And it takes time. It's just something I keep telling myself. I have to keep putting in these reps and keep throwing myself out there. And whether that means, once again, this is what I was saying in the beginning of the podcast. This is pre-COVID or, post-COVID, like going to different parties, going to gatherings, dinners, coffees, beach days like I did yesterday. I'm doing this not only to see people that I haven't seen in a minute, but also to like tap in and meet people, build more community. Because I've done the business stuff in LA. I've built, I'm really happy with the people that I know, but I want to be on another level with people. I want to like grab dinner and just talk life with people. I want to celebrate birthdays with people. I want to send people Christmas cards. I don't know. I just want to have like a true community that I felt like I had when I used to live in Boston, which was my college years. And I kind of lost that, over some time. And so it's very scary to move to a new city because you don't know how are you going to build that community. And just know that it's part of what you sign up for moving to that city. And I would recommend moving with at least one person that you know. It's been extremely beneficial to live with Dylan and Steve because these guys have been my rocks. To live with the same guys for the last 3 years has been incredible. It's allowed me to at least have some guys that I live with that I know, and it gives you support when you need it. But other than that, I've just recognized it's going to take time. And so that's what I do now. I throw myself out there. I'm just trying to network for community, not business, but for community. I want to meet people. I want to hear where people are from, why they live in LA, and just want to get on another level with people. So that'd be my next lesson. Building community takes time. Lastly, I think this is a very general thing, but I think it's really important, is no matter what happens, continue to see it through. Very similar to, this tattoo I have on my wrist, keep going. No matter what happens, continue to see it through. So interesting, and I'm sure this happens with other people in other cities, but I think it's like a common thing out in LA. It's like if you can get past your first year and you're still here, you're good. There's a lot of people that I know that when I first moved out here no longer live here, or who have left, came back. It's really interesting because us three here at the Content Crib 2.0, which is no longer in Sun Valley, we saw through. We're still here, but we all know plenty of people that kind of make pit stops in here and then leave. Whether it could be a million different things of reasons why, but I think it's so important to just continuously see it through. So I think when I look back, year one of living in LA was a fresh start. It was me trying to find my footing. It was me pushing myself outside the comfort zone. It was really just so new. That first 12 months, it was just like every month was like, holy shit, it's December in LA. Now it's January. It's like celebrating holidays for the first time on the West Coast. It was just so new. Year two was about staying focused and just trying to bring my vision to life and, testing new content ideas, doing YouTube vlogs. Year two was like, okay, I know LA, I know the land. I'm starting to, get my name out there. I just got to keep doing this. Got to keep staying consistent. Keep going. And then year three is when things started to really shake up, which was when I was embracing this new chapter with Liquid IV. And I just did a podcast earlier today with Zach Kravitz, who I had recently on the show. This was for his podcast, which will be coming out soon, Ramblin' Radio. And I talked about how taking the job with Liquid IV, the first 3 months was like honeymoon phase. It's just like when I wasn't working, I was just chilling. And it was the holidays out here. It was like November, December, January. And then right around February is when I started to kind of be like, okay, so what am I doing when I'm not working? What does that life look like? And so the last 5 months, as I've talked on previous pods, have been just, figuring my shit out. And probably since June, July, I really started to feel like I hit my stride. And that's why year three has been about embracing this next chapter with Liquid IV, now heavily focused on building that community and really just building out a 360-degree life in LA, which is balanced, which I've talked about, my career, whether it's, so we have career, keep that in balance, relationships, whether it's friendships or dating, getting back into the content game, new experiences, new hobbies, financial stability. Like I'm trying to become a very much more 360 rounded individual, where before there was just a lot of areas that just I neglected and didn't put any time and energy into. And I hope it's not, it can sound really annoying probably for people that have been listening to these last couple episodes, because I'm talking about the same things, but I hope it's just giving people insight, because it's just what I'm going through right now. And in 6 months from now, I'm going to be talking about different things that I'm going through, because we're just always continuously evolving, and it's always a work in progress with our lives. So what I'm focused on now is not what I'll be focused on in 6 months. And that's just how I feel like it's just interesting how life, that's just how it is. We continuously have something else we want to work on, and we continuously do. So yeah, those are the biggest lessons. I'd say number one, your home will always be your home. Number two, you got to seek your interests, such as moving to a new city or whatever it might be. Number three, there is always a way. Number four, building community takes time. And then number five, no matter what happens, continue to see it through. We're at just past year 3, heading into year 4 now, and things are looking good, and we're going to keep crushing it, and kind of see where it takes us from there. I'm sure many of you are asking, Bearded Man, Babe, how many more years you got in you? To be honest with you, I have no idea. I'm just going with the flow of life. I'm just enjoying the ride. Things happen in life that will be out of my control, or, maybe I meet a lucky someone, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know how much longer, but as of this moment in time, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep embracing it and soaking up everything about LA. I feel like right now, even amid a pandemic, is really when I've started to live in LA and started to embrace everything and just loving the city. So I can't say when, but as long as this place keeps that fire inside me and I'm enjoying and I'm meeting new people, it's a beautiful thing about living in a big city. There's always something to do. There's always somebody to meet. So I'm just going to keep getting my feet wet and trying to throw myself out there. And I just go with the flow, Let life write the script. I'm just the one holding the pen, ladies and gentlemen. Just the one holding the pen. So I hope you guys and gals enjoyed this episode. 3 years of living in LA, plenty more to come. And I really challenge anyone out there to move to that city you've always wanted to move to. Start thinking about it. Start planning it. And do it. And if you're not necessarily trying to move to a city, take another leap. Try a passion you've always wanted to try, or try something that's always been of interest, but you just haven't had the chance to step up and do. Hey, this is a one-shot deal. I'm trying to have some great stories and do some dope experiences, and that's what the Bearded Man's here to do. All that I ask, if you guys and gals enjoyed this episode, please screenshot this episode, post it to your Instagram story, tag me at Babe, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y, and let your friends and friends, what? Let people know why you enjoy this podcast. And also, too, by the way, by the time this drops, brand new cover art for It's the Bearded Man podcast. So, hope you guys and gals are enjoying that. I'm fucking fired up with how it looks. Got my man Kirk on the visuals, shooting it, coloring it, and I have my man Dylan touch it up, and it looks beautiful. I'm actually about to post this on Instagram right now, so hopefully by the time you heard this, you enjoyed it. So share out the podcast on your IG story. Keep rocking this content. Play more content away. Have a great rest of your day, night, week, whatever you're doing. Just do it and be great. Talk to you guys and gals soon enough. See ya.